With the stage set for modest economic growth, the path for credit unions becomes clearer. Capitalize on an expanding economy by looking for ways to make more loans. While the general lending path might be clear, your credit union's specific steps are less obvious. For additional guidance, we talked to the chairman of CUNA's Lending Council, Bill Vogeney, Senior Vice President and Chief Lending Officer of Ent Federal Credit Union in Colorado Springs.
I do believe the worst is over. I really advocate for credit unions to get ahead of the recovery. You know, it's not like they've missed the boat. We haven't had a tremendous economic recovery. There's still time to get your house in order, so to speak. I think one of the things credit unions have to do is go back and take a look at their lending practices and policies, compare them to what they were maybe after the initial economic downturn, maybe take a look at their lending policies from the mid-2000s before things got overheated, and just kind of see where do we stand, what's our take on LTVs, on credit risk tolerance or whatnot. That I think it's critical to get ahead of the recovery. I think the other thing credit unions need to do is they need to re-examine their overall business model. That there's a lot of credit unions for years that have been very hesitant to adopt sort of a sales culture, and business is just not going to walk in the door like it used to, and you're going to have to get comfortable with what you might refer to as a consultative sales model.
A shift in focus and a more aggressive approach to lending, not an unfamiliar refrain in changing times. But in the years ahead, a shrinking middle class will make for intense competition for creditworthy borrowers.
Yeah, it's going to continue to be intense. It's been the last 3 or 4 years. That's not going to stop. A lot of those consumers, they have good credit because they're very smart about their borrowing. They're still unsure about the economy. They're unsure about their individual jobs. Therefore, a lot of them are still going to be on the sideline.
With creditworthy borrowers in high demand, credit unions' ability to grow their loan portfolios will be challenged. How will credit unions compete?
I think you compete by service, and that's one of the things that, as a credit union movement, we feel very strongly about, but we're going to have to figure out a way to reinvent our processes and continue to make them better in order to compete. If you take a look at the mobile channel and what the mobile channel has done, for the big banks in terms of the deposit side, they've really forced credit unions to invest an awful lot of money to stay on top of the market. Just imagine what happens when the big banks start figuring out a way to mobilize, so to speak, consumer lending and mortgage lending.
Shifting to a consultative sales model, competing on service, and staying current with technology will help credit unions compete for creditworthy borrowers. Loan growth will also require a thorough and detailed understanding of market segmentation.
When you talk about segmentation, most people think about marketing and trying to break up your customers, your members by certain segments, age, demographics, where they live, whatnot. I think credit unions have to look at super segmentation from the loan portfolio side, not necessarily the member side. And it's really not enough for a credit union to say right now, we've got to grow auto loans by 10% this year. I think you have to get much more granular, and we're going to have to manage smaller pieces, smaller segments of the loan portfolio. So it's not just auto loans, it's not just indirect versus direct, it's not just new versus used. It's something as, granular as, I need to have more B and C used car loans, not to exceed 100% loan to value, up to 72 months to members, who have a year's worth of experience with us or a past auto loan with us, to these particular dealers. I think that's how you have to think. You have to look for every possible opportunity within the portfolio.
Market segmentation can help us identify potential members and create products and services to match. But understanding the implications of the changes in our marketplace will call for even more drastic adaptations.
Well, I think in terms of the credit union business model, that unbanked population, we have to get a lot better at making loans or making what has been referred to as story loans. that we really understand the consumers, the members' situation, where are they employed, how strong is their job, if they've had some problems and maybe they've kind of fallen out of the banking system, what caused that? Certainly there's a big group of the population over the last several years that may have become unbanked or underbanked because of going through a mortgage default or losing their job or whatnot. I think credit unions as a whole are really good at making loans to good people with good credit and whatnot. I'm not so sure that we're really good at making loans to people whose credit is not so stellar in those story loans.
Gauging a member's creditworthiness is a way to determine the risk of lending to that member. Dealing with consumers who might not be considered creditworthy by traditional measures would seem to increase risk for credit unions. Is there an upside to that risk?
The upside is yield. The upside is very loyal borrowers by taking on that additional risk. That, it's the old saying, know your member, know your customer, that once you've established this relationship with the borrower, with this member, and you've given them a chance, I think they're going to be extraordinarily loyal. My experience in credit unions, almost 25 years, I've dealt with a lot of members one-on-one who have had some real credit challenges, and once you give them a chance, they're extraordinarily loyal.
Finally, while it may seem that we're looking to distant horizons for our growth opportunities, remember not to overlook the opportunities immediately at hand.
We still realize, and we have a fairly good sales culture. Our frontline people are our best salespeople. When one of our employees opens up an account, if the members in front of them are on the phone, if they have a pre-qualified offer, that offer will pop up in front of the member service rep and they will sell it. Our first several attempts of this have found about 70% of the member acceptances, 70% of the members who accept come from our employees intervening and making that offer face-to-face or on the phone.